My name is JP, like Justice of Peace.
JP, Justice.
Yeah.
I have one question that's secretive and one question that's public. I hope to ask you the secretive question later in the secret chamber. 1 year ago, I wrote to a permanent secretary whom I'm acquainted with, and he personally forwarded my questions to a powerful government agency, head of corporate communication. The reply came 1 or 2 months later with 2 problems. One is that it has a clear, present, and dangerous error. 2 is that it was ghostwritten and signed off by the lowest level staff in the corporate communication department. The kind that answer your call when you call the inquiry line. And I've spoken with her before. She could not possibly have written that email, which involves some complex questions. So I'm very concerned about the amount of ghostwriting that goes on, within the government service. Thank you.
The question is about ghostwriting. How do you solve it?
Sorry, your definition of ghostwriting being someone writes something and someone else signs off?
Yes, correct. It's all public knowledge that American presidents have speechwriters.
Right.
But I was so taken aback that even the lowest level staff in the corporate communication department also have ghostwriters, above her to write a letter and then she has to sign it off. I was so taken aback by it that I became speechless and motionless. Until I see you today, I decided to ask the question again.
So you're trying to understand how the system of letter clearing is done in the public sector, or?
I'm concerned about how to reduce the amount of ghostwriting, because having interacted with several public as well as private organizations, I'm quite concerned that many of them seem to be run by corporate communication. Anytime you have any issue, they'll say refer to the corporate communication. And I'm concerned about, the fact that even a strong, powerful government agency can have a ghostwriter writing something off and sign off by the lowest level staff.
I think the fundamental question is, why is it that by the way, as a former government servant, I can tell you the answer also. That all letters that they send out, they always say, for the permanent secretary. So it's written on behalf of the institution. So the signature of the person doesn't matter as much as the institution that the person represents. So what you're getting is not a ghost-written answer, but an institutional answer signed and sent by one particular individual. But I can also assure you that an incredible amount of deliberation goes on behind the scenes, behind each letter. So it may be a strength, it may be a weakness, but that's how the system works. I think you'd agree, Minister.
Yes, I think so. Actually, what Kishore described is when you don't get a personal answer when you write to an institution, and I suppose rightly so, because the institution, as an institution, has to consider various angles and give you what they deem as the best answer from the institutional perspective. So they write on behalf of the PERMSEC or for the PERMSEC, but that is the institutional answer, I suppose. Yeah.
My question relates to what is being done to make Singapore a more conducive place for a population that will have a larger proportion of older persons. I understand that Singapore is not yet part of the global network of age-friendly cities, which is a World Health Organization initiative. I wonder if Mr. Chan can share with us what is government's position and plans on making Singapore a more age-friendly city. And I suspect the audience is probably more familiar with what the initiatives that have to do with infrastructure and hardware, so I hope he can focus his remarks more on the softer aspects, like what we can do to make the economy more open to allow older persons to stay economically active, and also how can we tackle mindsets and other softer barriers.
Yeah. No, indeed, I fully agree with you that we have done a lot from the infrastructure perspective. The associated challenges will be changing of mindsets. First, I don't think we should see the aging as a problem. For many, the aging issue can also be an opportunity. I think if you look at the matured economies like Japan, they don't call it a silver tsunami. Silver tsunami seems to connote disaster, right? But actually, the silver economy in Japan is actually thriving, right? But that mindset change is very important, exactly what you say. How do we look at our older people, and how do you define old people? I'll just share with you some of these personal anecdotes. In the past, when you talk about old people, you think about a guy who is 50, 60 years old, right?
Yeah, my age.
But today, when you talk about old people in Singapore, they are about 80, 90 years old. And during my house visits, very often they will say that, so I asked the old lady who is 80, 90 years old, are you all right? Are your children okay? Where are they working? Nowadays you get answer, working? My children have retired. That means they have gone beyond the traditional retirement age of 55. They are now actually in the 60s. So the whole thing has changed, and the way we see old people cannot be the way we see old people in the past. I give a very good example, a positive example of the Lions Befriender. The Lions Befriender used to look for young people to befriend old folks, to help them and to talk to them, to keep them company and so forth. After a while, the Lion Befrienders figure out that if you keep looking for young people, you will run into a mathematical problem. There are just fewer of them than the old people. And many of the young people are economically active and they have many preoccupations. Then they thought about it. Why must the befriender be another young person and not, why can't it be another old person? And they went around to recruit many of these older people to be befrienders to other old people. And strangely, they found that these older befrienders are much more mature. It gives them a sense of purpose of what they can accomplish rather than someone who's just sitting back and waiting for others to come and help them. And this is a subtle change in the mindset, but it makes tremendous difference to the way we see old people and what they can contribute down there. From the government perspective, we know that aging issues are not a single ministry issue, which is why we have a standing committee, the Inter-Ministry Committee on the Aging, we call it the Ministerial Committee on Aging, which have participation from MCYS, MND, the unions and so forth, to resolve exactly some of those issues that you talk about. Even taxi drivers, recently we increased the age of the taxi drivers because we don't think age should be the number that determine the qualifications, but it is really your health, your driving skills that should determine it. If you can go for annual currency tests and you pass them, then age becomes just another number. So we have to move beyond just using age and seeing age as a numerical figure that determines things, but to really look at how an individual health and his reflexes and so forth can contribute positively to society. And there are many things that I think we can learn from some societies like Japan, where they make full use of their elderly population to contribute actively to the community.